The following program has been funded in part through grants from the Exchange Bank Corporation, Incorporated, the Saunders Foundation, the David Falk Foundation, Tampa Electric Company, Port Sutton, Incorporated, the Tampa Tribune and the Tampa Times, the First National Bank of Florida, Tampa Armature Works, Incorporated, and Poe and Associates, Incorporated.
In 1824, the United States government ordered Colonel George Mercer Brooks to establish a fort where the Hillsborough River meets Tampa Bay. It has been just over 150 years since Tampa started as a cluster of buildings around that frontier fort.
And look at us now.
Tampa began as an Army base, and it was the Army Air Force in World War II that caused the turning point in Tampa's growth.
2 air bases were built here. Drew Field was right around the present airport. In fact, 2 of its airstrips are still in use. And MacDill was located at the southern end on Catfish Point. Mabry Highway was built to connect the two. The first MacDill planes had to be parked at Drew Field until the runways were completed in January of 1941, just in time for the war. Airmen trained here in the great old B-17, the flying fortresses that won the war in Germany. The B-26 and the B-29 that was used to bomb Japan and drop the atom bomb.
Tony, do you remember the old Victory Gardens? I planted lots of seeds in my backyard, but only the radishes came up. And I remember how everyone was urged to open their homes to the visiting relatives of servicemen stationed here. Tampa simply didn't have enough boarding houses and motels for all of them.
We are arriving at Airside C, serving Delta, TWA, Air Canada, Piedmont, and Republic Airlines. Please exit through doors with flashing symbols.
My dad converted part of the garage in the back of our house into an apartment. And when a family moved in, they became such close friends of my folks, they were eventually moved into the main house. They were given my bedroom, and I ended the war years on a couch in the living room.
C'est la guerre. Joyce, many of the young men who were stationed here during the war remembered Tampa and came back to live, make their homes here, and some went into business and industry. Later, as others became veterans and retired, they made their retirement home right here in Tampa so they could be close to the MacDill Air Force facilities.
After the war, Drew Field was given to the city, and part of it became Tampa Airport, and the other part the hub of a new industrial complex. But MacDill became a strategic air command base. It was then that some well-known actors arrived to make a movie called, of course, Strategic Air Command. Remember June Allison, Jimmy Stewart, and Frank Lovejoy? For a short time in 1960, it looked as if Congress would close MacDill. But fortunately for us, it became instead the U.S. Strike Command headquarters. Later, the first tactical fighter wing made famous in World War I by Eddie Rickenbacker came here.
So did some other famous Americans, like Senator Harry Truman. And in November 1963, President John F. Kennedy arrived on Air Force One. General Paul Adams was there to greet him. He was the first incumbent president to visit Tampa. Al Lopez Field was overflowing when he arrived to speak. He drove through town with Senator George Smathers and Congressman Sam Gibbons to the International Inn to speak to labor leaders.
4 days later, John F. Kennedy was killed by an assassin's bullet in Dallas, Texas. A shocked and saddened Tampa renamed Grand Central Avenue and Lafayette Street, the route which he had taken with his motorcade, Kennedy Boulevard. And a memorial was erected there in his honor.
World War II saw the beginning of the decline of Ybor City. Its young people began to move into other areas, and those who hoped for the refurbishment of Ybor City put their faith on urban renewal, but all they saw was the destruction of many old fine buildings and its people scattered to the four winds.
For a time, it looked as if all of Ybor City would be doomed to the wrecking ball. But there was one man, Harris Mullen, who showed the faith and courage in his dream of a revitalization of Tampa's Latin Quarter.
In 1972, Trend Publications was seeking a new corporate home. We discovered that there were some cigar factories for sale in Ybor City. And we wondered whether or not there was a possibility if the jewel of all of them, the VM Ybor factory, was among them, and sure enough it was. And we bought this complex at what we thought was a terrific bargain price. The complex is 3 buildings. There's the old factory, the warehouse, and the stemmery. We're standing in the stemmery now. This is where they used to take the stems out of tobacco. It's a very unique building. All of the columns are heart pine, the floors are 4 inches thick, the walls are very thick. There are no more buildings built like this in America. When we first came, we didn't exactly know how to approach the specialty mall, so we had little tables out on Sunday, and immediately we found that people were very much attracted by the nostalgia air here. We called the place the Nostalgia Market. Since then, it has developed into dozens of shops that you see here today that sell everything from postcards to antiques. We have 2 restaurants, Cafe Marti, the Rough Riders. The complex is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Since we've come here, we've developed or gained some valuable new neighbors like the Hillsborough Community College, Ybor Campus, the Sheriff's Office, Environmental Protection Building, a new state museum, and a number of new housing units. We think that Ybor City is a part of the growth and evolution of downtown Tampa, and we think that it will probably be the most exciting element of that metamorphosis in the next decade.
Joyce, these waters have seen many different kinds of ships during Tampa's history. The galleons of the Spanish conquistadores, pirate schooners, Captain James McKay's blockade runners, and Henry B. Plant's steamships.
In 1908, the town turned out en masse to celebrate the arrival of the first steamship to come through the newly dredged channel up to the mouth of the Hillsborough River. She was a Luckenbach freighter, the Rio Grande. Today, there's only one major shipping line which still has its home base in Tampa. Jan Uterwyk came here in 1956 with a modest import company. Today, the Uterwyk Corporation has 20 separate offices around the world and is one of the largest privately owned shipping organizations in the U.S.
Joyce, our port is the 8th largest in the country, but it ranks 3rd in export tonnage. Around 50 million tons go through here each year. You know, when phosphate was discovered here in 1885, it caused a real gold rush. Now it forms about half the total tonnage of the port. Our new ship repair and dry dock facilities are among the best in the country. Ships flying flags from over 50 different countries, and all major ports in the world are served through Tampa. We are the world's largest shrimp processing center.
Tony, Tampa is Florida's most industrialized city. $558 million worth of goods were produced here in 1 year. And one Tampa resident who has had a lot to do with that is our own Jim Walter.
Hello, I'm Jim Walter. I've grown up all my life in the Tampa Bay area, having started in Plant City, Florida, attending elementary school and the best part of high school there, and then moving to Tampa in 1938 and finishing my high school here in Tampa. I feel at this point I pretty well have grown up right here and know the people and know this town as well as anyone around here. I've seen Tampa grow from a very small town into a very large metropolitan city. And I've seen our company grow from a very, very small company into the large company that is today, using Tampa, of course, as our home base. We actually started our business some 1946, it's been some 33 years ago, when a fellow by the name of Davenport ran an ad in the paper and had a house for sale. I went out and saw it, and he was selling this particular house for $895. And having looked at it and thought it was a good buy, I bought it, and some few days later sold it and made $400 on it. I went back to Mr. Davenport a few days later, actually with the idea of buying another house from him, but as it worked out, we ended up becoming partners. Louis Davenport and I stayed partners for a period of approximately 2 years when I bought him out, and after that 2 years, I ran the company as a sole proprietorship, and it ran that way until 1955. At that time, we went public. In 1955, our company at that time was doing sales of a little under $4 million a year. Today, that same company is doing a little over $2 billion a year. Actually, we have gone from a very small home builder to one of the largest home builders in the United States, having built since that beginning some 220,000 homes. And today, we're one of the largest building materials manufacturers in the United States. We got into that business actually in 1962 with the acquisition of the Celotex Corporation. And after Celotex, we went on from there to the U.S. Pipe, the Barrett Division of Allied Chemical, Panacon, and many, many others. We've continued, though, to keep Tampa as our home base. Today, that same company employs over 25,000 people, operates some 112 plants scattered throughout the United States and Europe, and today we have over 35,000 shareholders who join with us in owning this company. We've found Tampa to be a very progressive, wonderful place, not only to live, but to raise our children and to do business. Actually, I think the spirit of the people here in this town that have kept us and our employees happy is something that we can be and they can be very proud of. Actually, we are very happy that the free enterprise system exists that gives us all the opportunity to grow and prosper, and we think there's no place any better than Tampa, Florida to do it in.
First brewery was built in 1895 by the Ybor family on 5th Avenue and 13th Street. Today we have two major breweries here, Schlitz and Busch. Besides making beer, Busch has grown from gardens and bird shows to a large entertainment park that brings tourists from throughout the world to Tampa.
Another entertainment center is located across the road from Old Drew Field. Tampa Stadium is home of two professional sports teams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
After the Civil War, when a Yankee travel writer sneered that Tampa had only a few classes being taught in the courthouse, who would have dreamed that Tampa would someday have 3 major institutions of higher learning?
The University of Tampa right here in the old Plant Hotel, and Hillsborough Community College with branches in Ybor City and Plant City.
And of course, out north of town, in what was once sand and palmetto scrub, there's the University of South Florida. Beginning with a charter class of less than 2,000 in 1960, it now is the second largest university in Florida, serving more than 23,000 students at campuses in St. Petersburg, Fort Myers, and Sarasota, where New College of USF is also located. You remember Mr. Butterfield, Tony?
Oh, yes. He was little Tampa town's music master. When he was staying at Fort Brooke, he formed a little local band.
We've come a long way from that little local band,
We
haven't
certainly
we?
have.
Nowadays, these beautiful old oaks around McKay Auditorium are serenaded by the sounds of the Florida Gulf Coast Symphony.
Now we have the symphony, the ballet, and the opera. But in the old days, Tampa was off the beaten path. If we wanted anything cultural, we had to make it ourselves. We depended on the Friday morning musicale and our Tampa Little Theater.
But we did manage to produce some fine local artists that way, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Like Eleanor Ross, whose voice has been heard by millions of people in all the major opera houses throughout the world. And we had another kind of musical heritage that produced some great jazz musicians.
Hi, I'm Nat Adderley. My brother, the late, great Julian Cannonball Adderley, and I were born here in Tampa. And, of course, we lived all of our young lives in Florida. And we think much of our success as jazz musicians can be directly attributed to our early experiences here, and a music that is as creative and oftentimes inspired as jazz music, then we must draw on our experiences in order to continually create something of interest. Of course, a city like Tampa, with its multi-ethnic background, is of course a tremendous way to influence what one does musically. We need a wide variety of music. We need a wide variety of experiences in order to create this music. Tampa has played an important part in our lives. Not only have we played here, many, many times at the old Cuban patio and other places while in school at Florida A&M. But in addition, my father was a jazz musician here in Tampa before I was born and during the first couple of years of my life. And we feel that Tampa has made great contributions not only to our careers, but many other fine jazz players have come from this area and gone on to establish themselves as great musicians. So we're very happy, very, very happy at this point to see the cultural expression in Tampa being accepted and growing more and more all the time. Hooray for Tampa.
There were some fine visual artists here too. When the University of South Florida opened in 1960, it had 2 buildings decorated with beautiful murals by native-born Joe Testa II.
And now a lovely sculpture by USF artist Harrison Covington has become a St. Petersburg landmark. Dr. Covington grew up in Plant City, and he brought his talent to Tampa when he founded the art department at USF. During the years, it has developed an international reputation and greatly enriched our community. The Covington sculpture illustrates the history of our Bay Area from the ancient Temecula through contemporary times.
There's another kind of outdoor art that has been popping up on buildings all around Tampa that can be enjoyed by everyone who passes by.
People have learned to appreciate art, Tony. Individuals and large companies alike have gathered extensive collections, and the city itself now has a place to house collections of its own.
The new is beautiful, Joyce, but it is also good to remember the old and to preserve it. Our Tampa Theater was one of the most beautiful movie houses in America. Like so many of our old buildings, it was threatened with destruction, but it was saved by public support. Now it is operated by the Tampa Arts Council and has not only films, but plays and concerts.
You know, Tony, Tampa's like so many other cities. People have moved farther and farther out to the suburbs and away from downtown. Some of the older buildings down here have grown shabby, Tony. Their tenants have moved out to the new malls and left them practically empty.
But Joyce, there are still some beautiful old buildings, like City Hall. You see that clock up there? In 1915, when the City Hall was under construction, Hortense Ford, who, by the way, she was the daughter of Dr. Oppenheimer, who brought many of us into this world, wanted a clock set on top of the building. And the city fathers told her that they didn't have enough funds to put a clock at the top. So she went out on her own and raised the funds for a clock. And the citizens of Tampa were so delighted with her work that they named the clock after her, and it's known today as Hortense.
It looks, Tony, as if there's a real drive on to revitalize downtown. Almost every year, new buildings are taking their place along our skyline. Places like the First Financial Tower, the Exchange National Bank building, and the new annex to the county courthouse. When urban renewal went through the district along the waterfront, Curtis Hixon Hall and the library became new places for us to learn and enjoy. Other buildings have been renovated so that they could live once more, like the new Founders Life building, Wolf Brothers in the loading dock. Franklin Street Mall was constructed, and now we can see cultural events as we sit along the downtown area and shop or eat. And now this new annex has been built next to the old City Hall, a twin sister to serve her and us.
Isn't it beautiful?
It certainly is.
You know, Joyce, there's one thing about Tampa. It never seems to stand still. We are still growing, and that means changes. Downtown Tampa is very symbolic of our city. Here, the old and the new join hands as they prepare for a future that's rich with promise.
I love this town, Tony.
And so do I.
The preceding program was funded in part by grants from the Exchange Bank Corporation Incorporated, the Saunders Foundation, the David Falk Foundation, Tampa Electric Company, Port Sutton Incorporated, the Tampa Tribune and the Tampa Times, the First National Bank of Florida, Tampa Armature Works Incorporated, and Poe and Associates Incorporated.